One night when I was at one of the church members' houses, I was molested. And I went and I told my mother. I'll never forget what she said to me. She was like, "You can't ever tell anyone that this happened, this didn't happen, don't talk about this." The thing that's really interesting about secrets, and the reason why I was willing to talk about this today, is because that secret ate me alive. So every single time I talk about this, it's me taking my power back just a little bit more.
In partnership with Unlikely Collaborators, we've designed perception box questions for communities with common experiences aimed to broaden self-acceptance and deepen self-understanding. This group of men was all asked, do you ever feel like you have to apologize for aspects of your life? And if so, why? These are their answers.
Sometimes I feel like I can't truly be a man comfortably in public.
Now, if this is your secret and you'd like to step forward and claim it and share your story, you may do so on 3. 1, 2, 3.
I came out as transgender when I was 14 years old, right after my father passed away. My dad was very abusive and very homophobic, so I never came out due to just being scared of what my life would be like. So as soon as he passed away, I came out to my mom, who was always on my side. She was one of my biggest fans. And as I went through high school, I had a very on top of the world feeling. I loved what it felt like to be myself. It was the best thing that I had ever experienced. In my junior year, towards the end of the year, I was walking into the bathroom and somebody followed me in there and grabbed me by my neck and threw me into the wall and choked me and held me there until I was basically begging for mercy. And I went to my school about it and they didn't do anything. They told me that because it happened in the bathroom, it wasn't something that they could prove actually happened. So I didn't tell anyone for months. I just let it eat away at me. I just went to school every day terrified for my life. Between that and how much I was drinking, that was what finalized my decision to drop out. But it was also what kind of taught me that I can't live in this little hole that I was living in. I decided that the only way that I should be living my life was fully as myself. So I pushed through and I finished high school early, and I was able to enjoy my first real year being me, and it was the best decision I ever made. But I still feel as if when I go in public, I can't truly be who I am. I feel like everyone's looking at me all the time. I feel like everyone's views are being pushed onto me.
Can I ask why you wanted to share that secret today?
My community really needs it right now. It's really sad to go online every day and see my trans brothers and sisters getting killed, getting murdered. So it's really important for me to stand up now because my generation really needs it. So.
If anyone can relate to Jaden's secret, you may step forward on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hi. For me, I grew up in a very religious and almost traditional household. I'm openly queer, and I feel like a lot of times, especially the way I dress, I'm very more flamboyant, more feminine presenting. So I feel like a lot of my family members, they look down upon that. Just from my past situations, I've worn full-on pink from head to toe, and out and about, and I've had other men take pictures of me, laugh at me, make fun of me. I even had other male figures and even kids poke fun at me, being oh yeah, why are you so gay, and call me and stuff like that. Cause and the thing is, at that time I didn't really know what those words meant, so that's even kind of even hits worse, knowing that I don't even know what that means, and you're just saying all these negative terms at me. So in addition to why I'm standing here, I feel like I can openly share that with you because I feel like you've been able to open that kind of safe space for me to share that.
Yeah, I'm really glad I was able to do that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was arrested for attempted murder.
I just got caught up in a nasty fight, and at the time I believed my best option was to kill him. I was afraid, and I was already wounded, so I decided to stab him to death. But I wasn't able to finish the job, thankfully. That was a miracle in itself. So I was sent to jail, and by the grace of God, I was released. That was a miracle in itself as well. But the real secret is, I used to be a person full of hatred and anger, and I'd be lying if I said that I didn't already have thoughts of killing him, and I had let my anger and resentment, get the best of me. People look at me and think like, oh, he's harmless, like he's not this big tough guy, he's not gonna hurt you. Really, I'm hiding these demons that I don't want you to see. So yeah, after I got out of jail, I felt a lot of remorse because I saw the pain and sorrow it brought to my family, and my mom had to sit me down, and she was disappointed in me and ashamed of me, and that destroyed me. It was kind of like a wake-up call for me. It's like, damn, Jonathan, you got a fucking problem here. I prayed to God for forgiveness. I apologized to my victim, actually, and I asked him to forgive me too, which was really difficult to do. But I realized I wasn't able to forgive myself, and I was having like PTSD flashbacks. I couldn't sleep, and seeing the moment where he was bleeding out on the floor, squirming and going cold, and it haunted me for a very long time. I had a really good therapist who taught me anger management, helped me through my trauma. I got deep into like journaling, and I'm still in the journey right now. I'm getting a lot better. I actually almost got fired from my job because I almost beat up my coworker. Sorry, Mom. But I'm giving myself grace because I'm proud of myself that I didn't act like the unhealed version of myself would have. So the main thing I had to learn was giving myself compassion, learning that it's okay. It's understandable that I was acting like that because of what I went through in my childhood. But teaching myself, rewire my brain to learn that it's safe and that I'm not in danger and I don't have to fight anymore. The reason why I share this story is because I want anyone that shares a similar experience to know that you are not bad. You are not the villain. You are just hurt and you're carrying a lot of pain. But trust me when I tell you, you can heal and you can change. Just know that you are good and that you are still worthy of love.
Boys, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, grace, compassion for yourself, and everything that you said, you are such an inspiration, man. And I'm glad that you shared. So thank you. Yeah.
For me, I really related with like the you were talking about you having anger issues.
Yeah.
My whole family knows that I have anger issues, and it's just like I've been trying to like cope with it in several different ways. One being the gym, like the main. That's like my main, like everything that, like I collect everything that I'm mad at, and just kind of like it's like throwing wood in a furnace and then everything smoking up,
Yeah, I feel like I spent a lot of my life channeling the anger, allowing it to fuel up and going to the gym, and finding other ways also to channel it. Mm-hmm. I've got the boxer's fracture, from punching walls as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that it was when I stopped channeling that hatred and that anger and stopped using that as my fire when my life really got better, because there's a way to find this forgiveness, this grace, this self-love, this self-respect, and this acknowledgement of this divine purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And you put all that together and you can channel that, and you can get even stronger and push even more weight and punch less walls, right?
Sure.
There's a journey to go on, and it takes time and it takes grace.
Yeah.
For sure,
But yeah.
It's been difficult navigating my relationships and rebuilding my life since I was sexually assaulted.
So, about 2 years ago, I was a valet driver, and one of the coworkers had asked if I wanted to hang out. I'd blown him off a couple times, and then eventually I was getting off one night, and he asked if I wanted to hang out. You know, he said there were a couple people coming, a couple of his friends coming over to his place, so I said, why not? And I get over there, and it was just us two. And so I thought, you know, this is a little strange. You know, he said that his friends ended up bailing, so I said, okay, I'll leave here in like an hour or two. He had given me a drink. We'd started drinking a little bit, and I was probably only about a beer or two in, and I just started feeling just completely drunk, as if I drank like 5 or 6 or 10 beers, you know, just completely intoxicated. And the last thing I remember was just passing out. And then I wake up, and it was 13 hours later. I was in the hospital bed. I was pretty confused. Nurse comes up and she says, hey, just wait 1 minute. So they were checking me out, they were getting me out there, and I just start remembering back, and I get bits and pieces of just, you know, like, just little moments of, you know, just while I'm sleeping, just getting touched or getting grabbed and stuff like that. And so it just started rushing back to me, and you know, just looking at the nurse and saying, hey, I think I got raped. And so, you know, she kind of like laughed it off, said, no, you just had too much to drink last night, because I guess I'd been there for so many hours. So I get checked out, I go outside. I remember calling my mom. I just remember telling her that just, hey, Ma, I think I'd gotten raped last night. And I remember her initial response was that she laughed and said, no, there's no way that happened. I don't know if that's the exact word she said, but it was something along those lines. And I just remember just instantly blowing up, and I started yelling in the phone. You know, I was yelling out front of the hospital. As the day kept progressing, I just kept remembering more and more of what had happened. I talked to a couple mental health experts. I talked to a couple police officers. But ultimately they just sent me on my way and told me that they would just get somebody to investigate it. And I felt pretty alone after that. I felt pretty isolated. I just didn't feel adequate. I didn't feel as if I was a person. It's definitely, it's been a long 2 years, and I've lost a couple friends because of it. My best friend I haven't talked to in over 1.5 years. And I mean, truth be told, that's just because the guy that did that to me, he was gay, and I had trusted him in that aspect, and my best friend was gay, and so it kind of carried over into that of, oh, I can trust you, you know, like my best friend, you know, I've been able to trust him, I've been able to like sleep in the same room as him, live in the same room as him. It's sad not having him, not having you in my life, buddy, but I feel like the walls that I have built up right now protected me for a little bit there, but I'm trying to work on breaking them down. And for a long time, I had hate and just a pure hatred in my heart. You know, I just have to get through that. It's just something that you have to get past and that you have to grow with, you know, it's not gonna leave me. Yeah.
My heart goes out to you, man. I think we live in a really odd space and time where when men bring this to the table, it's automatically dismissed. And I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. And I believe you. Just know you're not alone. The thing that's been the most difficult to overcome is being able to accept love. What I've come to realize is no matter what happens, I'll never be what I was before that moment. We've been hurt, and we feel alone, and we feel isolated. You gotta see you're not. You know, and that to me has been the greatest sense of hope. You're brave as fuck for sharing that, man. I'm sorry you had that experience, but you're not alone.
My sophomore and my junior year, I was molested, raped, and sexually assaulted by 4 of my very close friends at separate times. It was a really like dehumanizing experience for me. It was very isolating. I had just come out, so I didn't really have like a ton of friends. My girlfriend and my best friend, they really saved my life. And my best friend Kirsten, he really like redefined what it's like to be a man for me. He's like my brother. And my girlfriend, which is the first time that I ever felt like someone could really love me as a man. And that was really, really great for me. So they really saved me from those situations, but I always still think about the things that happened to me. So I just wanted to thank you all for sharing, because I wouldn't have said that if you guys didn't. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, man. You guys are brave. Thanks.
Sometimes I feel uncomfortable in a group of men.
I guess when I was a toddler was when it started. My mother was married to my father, who was a problem drinker, and they fought a lot. That's one of my earliest memories, in fact. And I guess I wasn't until fairly recently I found out he hit her. I never really felt to be very masculine growing up. I was terrible in sports. I was afraid of balls, and I was bullied. In fact, it wasn't until I was 19 that I stood up to any bullies and actually got into a real fight with anybody. But I guess that's kind of been how it is for me. I still associate masculinity with toxic masculinity. I'm told that they're different. As I've gotten older, I've been drinking more and more. And when I'm in bars, most of the patrons are men, of course. While I've never witnessed a bar fight, I guess there's always the thought in the back of my mind, maybe this is going to be the one time when I go to this dive bar, I'm actually going to see fists fly or glasses fly across the room, and it does kind of make me a little bit nervous. The early associations I have with my father and his drinking kind of are what have lent itself to my feelings of just being uneasy in groups of men, still to this day. My traumatic experiences are not as serious as the others we've heard. It's true. And at the same time, I also think that it's kind of one of those things where being in this group and realizing we're willing to be vulnerable, willing to be supportive of each other, I think that's a side of men that we don't see. I don't think we see it in the media. I don't think we see it in entertainment, maybe in the home, maybe in private. But I think that this is a rather unique experience for me, and it's kind of changed the way I look at it. It's true. Okay.
I was raised by women. Mm-hmm. And my stepdad was just this monster of abusive man. And for years, I was actually just terrified of guys. Like, and I'm a big guy. Like, generally speaking, most people, it's the opposite. What I would come to find in childhood is just constantly staying away from men in any capacity, because the violence was just so overwhelming. I was terrified of any guy possible. And that turned into just a tremendous amount of violence from my own hands. What's really interesting is once upon a time, it was just pure terror of the idea of being seen in this space in any capacity, and now it gets to be freedom, because what I've come to realize is just the same thing you mentioned, like, we're all having a communal experience. Like, our definitions of masculinity are all different. I don't know that one is right or wrong, but ultimately it's like, you've got to take inventory of your life. And when I started doing that, it got a lot easier to stand in spaces like this.
Right.
For me growing up, it was also very one-sided. The way that I saw men was always very violent, and the way that I saw women was the exact opposite. I always went to my mom and my sisters for a kind ear, and I went to my brother if I wanted to like wrestle him for fun. And that was always just like how it was. Like, I never knew anything else. So when I came out, it was very hard for me to know like what way I was supposed to act, because what I thought a man was super violent, big and burly. Like, that was all I knew, and that's not me. I'm not violent at all. I've never been in a fight in my life. I'm just not like that. And for me, it took really looking into myself and figuring out that masculinity is whatever I define it to be. I know that I'm a man, and I don't need to act like every other man in order to like be a man. But it's also like a big barrier. I feel very unwelcome in masculine spaces, so I'm still working on getting myself into a headspace where I know that I'm allowed to be here.
My past experiences with guys, like with just like my dad and like other men like that are older than me, like they were awful to me. And then like I grew up being raised by my mom, my grandma, my aunt, even my sister too. So like a lot of like the family members I grew up with were women. So they taught me about life. They taught me about how I should kind of like go about things. Like even like today, walking in here and knowing that I'll be around a bunch of guys scared me, because I was like, oh my God, like I can't, how am I supposed to talk to them? Like how am I supposed to interact with them? Because a lot of my friends are girls and are women. So I feel like conversations I would have with my girlfriends, I probably wouldn't be having with my guy friends much. I think it's something that I have to kind of constantly work on, because knowing that like, just because like some men are not like what I expect them to be, doesn't mean that like I should kind of like hold that perception of them still.
I was molested in the church, and my mom made me swear to never tell anyone.
We grew up in the Mormon church, which is like super weird because we also grew up in the hood and we were in poverty. And so like you look back at that and it's like this very strange experience. My mother and her drug addiction and my stepfather being absent kind of led us to wherever. And one night when I was at one of the church members' houses, I was molested. And I thought that when that happened, it was normal, because I didn't know, because I was a child. And you know, when you're in like, I don't know, 4th grade or something, you kind of do one of those very first like good touch, bad touch classes. And I was like, oh shit, this wasn't actually good. And I went and I told my mother. I'll never forget what she said to me. She was like, you can't ever tell anyone that this happened, this didn't happen, don't talk about this. I understand like the why behind it. The church was unbelievably like giving to my family. A lot of our food came from the pantry. Our rent was often paid from the tithings. And I think that the fear that she had in that was, if this got exposed, we would lose that lifeline. And I kept that secret for 27 years. And the thing that's really interesting about secrets, and the reason why I was willing to talk about this today, is because that secret ate me alive. I mean, it is probably, out of a lot of really fucked up things that have happened to me in my life, it was probably the worst thing. That's where I lost my experience of childhood. I mean, there's the cuts and the scars and the burns, like, and the physical and mental abuse that I went through, but this was different. I was in survival mode. I was just trying to do whatever it took to make it through day to day. And that's how I started doing drugs when I was 12, and fighting all the time and hooking up with people and going down this path of self-destruction. A lot of people have asked me over the years how I feel about my mother telling me that and hiding that secret and keeping it until I'm 27 years old. And the thing that I always come back to is, that's just the human experience. I don't know what to say other than that. And when I think about who I've become, there has been a tremendous amount of healing that has had to take place in order for me to be here right now. I mean, the pain of that experience not only destroyed my life, but it put me in this place where I attempted to kill myself twice. Statistically, you can go to a website, it's called 1in6.org. 1 in 6 men have been sexually abused at some point in their life. And it's the biggest, darkest secret that we keep. So every single time I talk about this, it's me taking my power back just a little bit more.
And that 1 in 6 number that you just said really stuck out to me because I remember after the fact, it definitely made me feel less alone, but at the same time, it just kind of, I still felt isolated because, you know, it's something that, you know, as a man that you don't think that happens to you, you know, and probably as like a little boy too. It's just tough when you're in it, you know, you don't think anything of like the effects it has on your body and your mind and the actions that you have, you know, it's just after you do something, you're realizing, oh shit, like I did that because of this trauma that I experienced, and it sucks to look back when you hurt people or when you push people away because of that.
For me, like my experience, I was a kid, and it was from someone in my family, and obviously like we're super tight, so like I just never told anyone. It's just kind of like you're a kid, you don't know what to do, you don't know like who to go to, you know. So and especially if it's like someone that has like power, you just don't want to ruin like you don't want to break any like relationships. You think you're the only one going through it. Little do you know that there's a bunch of other men that's gone through it too. You know.
My heart goes out to you guys. I was younger, maybe 3rd or 4th grade. We had a babysitter that was much older, and he would take me to the back room, and I was way too afraid to tell on him. He was threatening. He was, at that age, he was the boogeyman. I mean, he was what was under my bed and hiding in my closet at night. I went through this process of rage where I wanted to murder this guy. Forgiveness is huge. It's the most important part, you guys. And you got to do it right, because the way I did it at first was I envisioned myself choking him out in my imagination and like holding him down and stabbing him until he died, and like feeling his life leave his body. And once I finally like felt that he was gone from this earth, I put him down in the river and watched him float away. And I really thought that was my way of forgiving him. And all I was doing was just filling myself with violent thoughts and rage. And it was showing up in other places in my life with the alcoholism and the fist fighting that we talked about. Understanding my journey in this life and taking that person and from the bottom of my heart, forgiving him. Not for him, I'll never tell him that. I don't even know who it is. And it was like a building being lifted off my shoulders. And I didn't talk about it for 20 years. Like he said, I mean, talking about it heals it. Without the forgiveness and without actually talking about it and coming together like we are, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today.
The older that I get and the more work that I do and the more I like look in the mirror, I'm like, that's not on me. Like, I'm not culpable for the worst thing that ever happened in my life. But what's so interesting and the truth about why I decided to share this is because I'm like, there's like fucking 10 of us here and 4 of us are right here right now. What does that tell you?
Right.
You know, it's not 1 in 6. Like, I don't care what that statistic says. I know way more men who would never stand up here right now. So I just want to say I'm proud of you guys. Like, this shit sucks, man, but it's like, this is how you free yourself.
For sure.
And this is how you free the guys behind you who are terrified.
Yeah, because eventually people are going to follow in behind you.
Like, I really appreciate you for like sharing your story, because like you said, you know, talking about really helps you control your life and helps you maintain and have almost like having power over that rather than like letting that sort of like nightmares fuel my life. So thank you guys for sharing your stories. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you for
guys.
being brave. Thank all you guys for being brave.
I've never had an experience like this. I'll remember this, you know, for the rest of my life.
I mean, like, how many times did we hear today that like I wouldn't have said that if you didn't say that first, right?
Facts.
And I think this is going to set a precedent for other people to do the same thing.
That's the power of vulnerability.
For sure. Yeah.
You give other people permission to open up when
Absolutely.
they see you doing the same.
Why not? A little brotherly love in here never hurt anybody.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you guys.
Man. It's a beautiful experience with you guys. Thank you guys all.